We now move to the clinic part where we're going to demonstrate some of these techniques. And the reason why we're going to do multiple different procedures is that the latest statistics are showing that about 69% of Americans say that their stress has increased in the past year. So I want you to just look at this symbol that I'm going to put up right to our viewing left, and that is the symbol of Qi, which is the Chinese symbol of the life force of the entire universe. Now the curious thing about this is that there are actually two symbols combined into one. The inner symbol is called the pot of uncooked rice. Now if you think in the Western world prism, how long would it take you to take a pot of uncooked rice to make cooked rice? And the answer is, well, about 30 minutes, right? You get the water boiling, then the rice comes to its cooking temperature, and then some of the water is boiled off, and now you have rice ready to eat. So what does this have to do with the stress system and how we're going to evaluate human performance? And that is that there are short-term diagnostic and treatment strategies that will tell us how your body is doing right now. Western medicine and the world of athletics has very poor indicators of long-term stress problems. We have great indicators for short-term stress problems. Just like Titanic, there are short-term, mid-term, and long-term indicators of how your body is performing, and then we'll be able to determine how you're recovering. So the pot of uncooked rice, we're going to talk about 4 different short-term parameters of how to test. The second symbol that you now see is the Jing, or the essence. So now let's take that pot of uncooked rice. What would happen if you now boiled the pot and the rice so that there was nothing left except the fire? There would be no mist, there would be no physical pot. How long would that take to take that kettle of uncooked rice and make nothing out of it, not even a vapor? And the answer is a very long time. You could be talking a year, maybe 2 years of excessive heat that will cause this metal pot and its ingredients to vanish into thin air. That's an unusual concept for the Western mind to grab their mind around, but the Chinese think like this all the time. So that's called the Jing. What does this have to do with recovery? There are long-term diagnostic and treatment strategies that we can take advantage of that determine what your performance is going to be and how you are recovering. So now one of the ways that you can start to do this yourself, we'll talk a little bit about this a little later on, is I wrote a book called The Do-It-Yourself Stress Makeover. It's a 30-day protocol of how you can step-by-step recover and assess how your stress system is doing. So here are some simple things that you can start to do at home. You can take 3 blood pressures. So if you take your blood pressure sitting, then you lay down, wait for 2 minutes, take your blood pressure again, the blood pressure should drop. So the first number, your systolic blood pressure, that number should drop about 8 to 10 points. Then you stand up. As soon as your feet hit the ground, start taking your blood pressure, and that first number should now go up 8 to 10 points. If your blood pressure only goes up 4 points, or it stays the same, or it drops, then you are not recovering from the simple stress of gravity. So that's a short-term stress recovery examination principle. You can do this on your own very easily. Another one that we're going to show you is the moving eye pictures. We'll show you some pictures, and actually you can do that right now. Just go to our website, istressedout.com, and then click on the 10-second stress test. It probably is going to be in the lower right-hand side of the screen, and then the moving pictures will come up, and just watch those moving pictures. If the pictures are moving, then you're not responding to that simple sensory input that we're increasing the stress on your eyes just a little bit. Something else that you can use, we're now going to take from traditional Chinese medicine, and that is something called tongue diagnosis. The tongue can represent specific patterns that are not present or evident from typical clinical manifestations. So quite simply, the regions of the tongue are a reflection of your internal environment. The good news is that it takes about 30 to 45 days of the inside of your body to be abnormally functioning for it to become manifested on your tongue. So when you look at your tongue, if you look at the very tip of your tongue, the tip of your tongue, if it's turning red, then your stress system has been under the gun. Your body's under stress and you're not recovering. Now here's the bad news, and that is no matter what you do today, you can take the best nutrients, you can meditate, you can do recovery workout, you can sleep. the tip of your tongue will be read tomorrow. The reason is this is a mid-range diagnostic treatment parameter. It takes 30 to 45 days for this thing to show up on the tip of your tongue. So whatever you do, you have to do it consistently for 30 to 45 days in order to reverse that internal derangement as a reflection on your tongue. So this is something you can do really easily. Just look in the mirror every day or have someone look at the tip of your tongue. Tip of your tongue's red, you're not recovering. Now, we're going to use some applied kinesiology procedures to use for short range and long range evaluation of the stress system and your recovery. Now, the reason why I love applied kinesiology is twofold. Number one, it's a binary system. If you're familiar with computer technology or binary systems, there's either a 0 or a 1. Your nervous system is either working properly or it's not. And so muscle testing, diagnostic muscle testing with very specific indicators and questions we can ask the body will tell us, is it working properly or is it not working properly? And the questions we ask, in our case, short-term questions versus long-term questions, we can get a very quick answer. The other reason why I love applied kinesiology is something that I refer to as system redundancy. There's always more than one way to figure out something about one entity. So we're talking about cortisol being elevated, your stress system overworking, and your body not recovering. So the system redundancy is, whoa, wait a minute, we have 4 different ways to check short-term recovery, and we have 5 different ways to determine long-term recovery, and each one of those may have 2 or 3 different patterns of how to evaluate one of those different items. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my friend Sergeant Brandon McElroy to come in, and then we're going to demonstrate some of these things so that you can get a flavor of how easy these things are to perform, and then how you can use some applied kinesiology to determine if, for example, I Stressed Out is a product that you can use in your recovery. So Brandon, come on in. Jason, I haven't talked to Brandon in a few days, so I don't know what's going on with his body, so this is perfect. So if he's having any pains that are long-term pains, or if he has any new pains, I don't know, and he hasn't told me specifically, so we can demonstrate this. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is a neurological principle. It's called a flexor withdrawal reflex. And quite simply, let me back up just a minute. We're going to go through the 4 pot of uncooked rice, or short-term indicators. Then we're going to go through the 5 long-term, or Jing indicators. And then once we have all that information, then we're going to backtrack and then apply some nutrient principles to see, okay, is I Stressed Out an appropriate nutrient for your recovery regimen? So the first one we're going to do again is the flexor withdrawal reflex. When your body is in pain, you have inflammation running through your body. There are 9 chemicals that cause inflammation, and so we're only going to deal with one of them, and that's cortisol, or the stress hormone. So the way the flexor withdrawal reflex works is if you step on a sharp object, then you're going to withdraw your foot away. You actually withdraw your whole body away. So if he has any problems on one side of his body, we'll be able to determine this. The way the flexor withdrawal reflex works in the normal situation is if I scratch his foot, then a flexor muscle on the opposite side of his body should temporarily go weak or be inhibited for one contraction only. So we're going to check this. We're going to scratch his foot, test an arm muscle, and do the other side. Then we're going to scratch his hand and check the arm muscle. So you can do a lower body flexor withdrawal reflex and an upper body flexor withdrawal reflex. So let's just test a muscle right here. Okay, hold right here, Brandon. Okay, and then let's just try this side. Relax that one down, straight elbow as you can. Pull that way for me. Okay, so now I'm going to scratch his left foot, test his right arm. And you have to scratch it pretty vigorously. And now pull that way. Okay, now that is an abnormal response. He should temporarily go weak. Let's just for fun try the same thing with a hand. We're going to scratch his hand and pull that way. Let's try that one again. Pull that way. So when we scratch his hand, it works properly. Okay, so here's the magic question. Brandon, are you having any pains in this part of your body down here?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Imagine that. Okay, so this is not magic. Okay, it's just functional neurology, and we're using applied kinesiology tools to assess that. Okay, so now we can take advantage of that. You can do something that will calm this down right now. And when we get to the nutrient part, that's what we're going to do. Let's just try the other side. We're going to scratch here, pull that way. Okay, and that one is also abnormal. We're going to scratch his hand, pull that way. And that one is abnormal. So any symptoms on right lower body?
Yes.
Okay, and then right upper body?
Yes.
Okay, so we've targeted that with those 4 simple tests. Scratch the foot, check opposite flexor muscle, scratch the hand, check opposite flexor muscle. The second test we're going to do is a Chapman's reflex. And the Chapman's reflex is a viscerosomatic reflex from an organ to the physical body. So we're going to use the adrenal Chapman's reflex. It's located 2 inches above your belly button, 1 inch to either side. And all we have to do, we're going to just take this muscle right here. Just take your hands off your body, Brandon. Push up to the ceiling. Okay, and we're going to have you touch 2 fingers of each hand. So he's just touching on either side. He's up 2 inches and 1 inch on either side of his belly button. Just push up here. And then all of a sudden it's like he just has no resistance there. Now here's where that system redundancy thing comes in. There's a different way to do this, and not to complicate it, but just to demonstrate it to you. Different muscles are related to different organs. So we're going to just check a muscle related to the stress system. So when we check this leg right here, we're going to have you just turn your leg in a little bit, squeeze your right leg to the left. And so that one is strong. So when we touch these 2 spots again, we're going to squeeze your right leg to the left. Okay, and that one goes dramatically weak. So again, 2 different ways that we can do that. The next one we're going to do is called the cortisol point in electroacupuncture according to Withdrawal. This is a German medical doctor who investigated acupuncture in the last century. And what he found was that every acupuncture point is related to a physical location in your body or a physiological function. So he was able to figure out that, number one, acupuncture points are related to every hormone of your body, white blood cells, red blood cells, different kinds of white blood cells, different glands. And so his cortisol point is located in between the 5th and the 4th metacarpal bone, right about here. So I'm going to put a diagram up that you should be able to see right now. And that's where the location of the Withdrawal cortisol point is. It's also traditional Chinese acupuncture point, triple heater 3. So we can do 2 things. Number one, we can just palpate these from side to side. Okay, so Brandon, any tenderness on either side?
Right side.
Right side is definitely more tender than the left.
Definitely.
Okay, so just palpate. So you can do this at home yourself. You can do it right now while we're going through this. Okay, if there's tenderness there, it's an indication that your stress system is off, you're not recovering. You can do something now and make that go away right now. But why? It is a short-term indicator of how you are recovering. Okay, so again, we're going to use applied kinesiology here. We're going to use a muscle test. Just take your hands off your body, push your knee straight up to the ceiling, relax that down, and all we're going to have Brandon do is just touch that spot right there. So he's just touching right here like this. And now just push your leg straight up to the ceiling. And again, we get a response where he loses his strength or the muscle becomes inhibited because of the question we're asking here. Our last, just relax your arms, thank you. Our last short-term indicator, again, we're going to go to traditional Chinese medicine here, is an acupuncture point that is amphoteric, meaning it is diagnostic and it's therapeutic. It's located halfway between the top of your breastbone and the bottom of your breastbone, so right in the center. So Brandon, I'm going to just have you touch right here. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to just rub that spot. Is that tender right there?
No.
Not so much. Okay, so just try this on yourself while you're watching. If you just go right to the center of your center of your breastbone and just push and see if that's tender. Most people don't realize this, and as soon as you touch it, you'll get a withdrawal response like that. Why? Because it's tender, and it should not be tender. So we're going to use, so not too much tenderness there, correct?
No.
Okay, so again, we're going to use an applied kinesiology procedure here. We're going to just have them touch that spot and test over here. Okay, push up to the ceiling. Okay, hold. Okay, and we get a abnormal response there or a positive response. So far, here's what we figured out. Our 4 short-term indicators are all positive. One of them is tender to touch, is on his right hand. We have 5 different long-term indicators. We're going to start with a traditional Chinese approach from the WuXing, or what Westerners would refer to as the law of the 5 elements. So we're going to palpate 4 specific acupuncture points. We're going to palpate them from right to left on his body, and what we'll typically find is that there'll be a pattern where it'll be all tender on one side of his body. He may have tenderness on both sides, but one side will be a little bit more affected than the other. Now I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to take a wild guess, is that it's probably going to be his right side. Why? This one was more sensitive to begin with, and then he had the flexor withdrawal reflex positive on both upper and lower body on the right hand side. What does this mean? The right side of his body, you have 2 adrenal glands. The right one is probably working a little bit overtime compared to the left one. So I'm going to go out on a limb, see how good I am. We're going to palpate starting at the feet, and I go side to side. I'm going to just push on kidney 2. Any sensitivity on either side?
Right side.
Right side is more tender than the left. Okay, and the next we're going to go to kidney 7, and any tenderness there?
Both sides.
Both sides. Okay, I'm going to just try a little bit more. Is the right side a little more sensitive, or can't tell?
Right side is more
Right, a little more sensitive.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're going to go to kidney 10, just in the back of the knee. Any tenderness?
right side.
The right side, and consistently. In other words, neurologically, his body is not lying. And then the last spot we're going to go to is kidney 27, way up here. And then any sensitivity there?
Both sides.
Both sides, and then hard to tell one more than the other.
Yeah, they're both about the same.
They're both about the same. So the lower 3, definitely right side is more. The last one, about even. Okay, so here's the cool thing. Now we can go to Western medicine. If we just palpate, it's called a positive Rogoff sign. If we just go to the tip of his 12th rib and touch right over the adrenal gland, any sensitivity there?
No.
And any sensitivity here?
A little bit.
Okay, so right side is a little more sensitive than the left. Okay, and again, that is consistent with what we're finding. Again, this is a long-term indicator of how his recovery is doing. The next one we're going to do is directly from applied kinesiology. This is called an adrenal ligament stretch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to just use a shoulder just because it's easier for the camera. We're going to test a shoulder muscle. You're having some shoulder problems, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're going to test the shoulder muscle, and then what we're going to do is we're going to stretch the ligaments around the shoulder in multiple directions and see what happens. So relax that one by your side, and then just turn a little more. Pull your arm toward, keep your elbow straight as you can. Pull towards here. Good, thank you. And then relax your arm. So all we're going to do is stretch the shoulder muscles, shoulder ligaments in multiple directions, and then retest over here. Pull over to here. Okay, and then we get a pull. We get an inhibition for one contraction only. Sometimes it lasts longer. So this is the adrenal ligament stretch. The ligaments have become lax because stress hormones have not been removed from his body, and they are lodging themselves in the ligaments, and so the ligaments then become lax, and then that makes the joint very unstable. This is where you see an athlete where nobody will be touching him. He'll be running, let's say in football, nobody will be touching him. He runs down the field, plants his foot to cut, to change directions because he sees an opponent coming towards him, and then his knee gives out on him. How can that happen? And the answer is, very logically, ligamentous instability because of long-term problems of not recovering from stress hormone cortisol. The next protocol I learned from a friend of mine. He calls it your brain on fire, where we're going to challenge the hypothalamus. 2 small caveats here is we have to use a muscle related to the adrenal glands, and then we're going to ask the body a couple of specific questions after that. So let's go down here. We're going to use the gracilis, which is an adrenal muscle. Just take your hands off your body, Brandon. Thank you. And just turn your leg in. Squeeze your right leg to the left. So that's strong to begin with, so we got a good indicator. So now I'm going to have you take 2 fingers. Let's use this hand and put them right in between your eyebrows for me. And all he's doing is touching what the Chinese call yin tong, or what Western medicine calls the glabella. And then we're going to test his adrenal related muscles. Squeeze your right leg to the left Okay, and that's showing positive. Hold again. Hold, 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 hold. Okay. Relax that. Now, system redundancy, a second way we can test this is from our inflammation protocols that we just touched upon in the recovery model. So what we're going to do is we are going to just induce some pain or nociception, okay, anywhere in the body. And so we're going to just pinch up and down his legs and then retest that adrenal muscle. Squeeze this way. Okay, so we get an inhibition that way. Now, here's a shortcut when we deal with the inflammation protocols is, okay, how extensive is this inflammation from the excess cortisol? So now if we test any other muscle of his body, and we're going to do multiple muscles, if we induce pain and all of those muscles go weak, or any muscle we test go weak, in other words, he has global inhibition from the little bit of pain stimulation, then that tells us neurologically what areas of the brain are involved. And that, yes, this is a little more longer term problem that he's not recovering. So we're going to just try that. We're going to pinch up and down again. Okay, just push up here. Okay, and we're going to pinch up and down and pull your arm over to here. It doesn't matter which muscle we test. Pull that way. It doesn't matter where we pinch, anywhere in his body. Pull that way. Even if there's no pain in the area that we touch, any muscle we test goes weak. So he has global inhibition. So that's telling us something else about inflammation, not so much about this cortisol recovery protocol, but it's a different recovery protocol. So again, system redundancy. Number one, we have touch, yin tong, between his eyebrows, test an adrenal related muscle. The second way is just induce pain, and that causes weakness of the adrenal muscle. Our next long-term protocol is something called the intermediolateral column, part of the central nervous system. So what we're going to do is we're going to again use an adrenal related muscle, and all we're going to have him do is I want you to just look at the tip of your nose with your eyes and then squeeze your right leg to the left. Okay, so now relax your eyes. That one did not cause inhibition. So that's the first test we've done that has been normal. Converge your eyes on the tip of your nose, test an adrenal related muscle. If it goes weak, indication of adrenal problems, cortisol problems, long term. Our last long-term protocol is the pontine medulloreticular formation. A lot of words for part of the brain and central nervous system, where what we're going to do is we're going to shine a light on the nose side of the eye, and then test a muscle on the same side of the body. We're going to add one thing here. We're going to test an adrenal muscle, and then we're going to test a heart-related muscle, which is the subscapularis. Shine a light in the eye, and then test, and then do it on both sides. So I'm going to just use my phone here, and we're going to dial up my light. Okay. So again, we've been using this adrenal muscle. We know it's been working good for him. So now just look straight ahead, and now squeeze your right leg to the left. Okay, so he goes weak with that one. Now we're going to just test the heart-related muscle. So just push your hand into my hand. Okay, and we're going to stay right there, look straight ahead, shine a light in the nasal part of the eye, hold. That one stays strong. Now, I'm not going to test the other side just because my back will be to the camera, but you get the idea from those principles right there. Okay, so let's backtrack. The 4 short-term tests that we did on him were positive, and then 4 of the 5 long-term tests that we did on him were positive. The one that was not positive was that IML thing where he looks at the tip of his nose and then tests the adrenal muscle. Okay, so now here's the next step where we have to go quickly in this diagnostic protocol. We're going to put some of the eye stressed out in his mouth, and then we're going to redo all of those 8 of the 9 positive tests. Okay, so now the first thing is we're going to just take a tablet, we're going to put it in his mouth, and then we need to wait until he tastes the substance. And the reason why that's important is that we know neurologically from the gustatory reflex that the brain and the central nervous system have neurological recognition of what this thing is. And then we're going to do our protocols. Okay, so we're going to put this in Brandon's mouth. Okay, Brandon. Okay, just bite that. Forgot to turn off my... Okay, you can taste that. Okay, so now we're going to go through the 4 short-term ones. First one is we're going to scratch his foot. Pull your arm that way. Okay, and now he goes weak or is inhibited like he normally should be. We're going to scratch his hand. Pull that way. Okay, and that's returned to normal. We'll do it the other way. And then pull your arm that way. So those have all reset. The next one, when we had him touch the Chapman's reflex, so we're going to have you touch 2 inches above the belly button, 1 inch on either side. Push straight up to the ceiling. Push up. Okay, and that one is reset. The next one, you can do this 2 ways, is the Withdrawal cortisol point. His right side was a little more sensitive. Okay, any change here? Still, they're about the same now?
About the same, but very less tender.
Less tender, okay. So now we're going to just confirm this. We're going to just have you touch that spot. So he's just touching like this again. Push straight up to the ceiling. Okay, great. And then the last one of the short-term ones, we're going to have him touch right in the center of his breastbone. Remember, this wasn't very sensitive to begin with, but if it was painful, sensitive, we do that first and see, okay, is there a change in sensitivity? Then we're going to test this way. Just push straight up to the ceiling. Okay, so that one is reset too. Now we're going to go on and check the 5 long-term or the Jing indicators. So the first one is the WuXing, where we're going to palpate those 4 acupuncture points. If you recall, the right side was tender in the first 3, and then they were about the same in the last one. So any change here?
Right side still tender.
Right side still tender. Okay. And then this one right here?
About the same.
About the same. So they feel the same, or with no pain, or they feel the same with pain?
With pain.
With pain. So it's decreased on the right side from before. Okay, now this one right here?
Very little pain.
Very little pain. Okay, and then last one up here?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. So that one is confirmation that yes, the eye stressed out is working to correct a long-term problem. Remember, it's a long-term diagnostic indicator, so how long is he going to have to take the eye stressed out? More than a couple of days, right? We've had several athletes that have taken this for 6 months to a year to recover for all of these indicators to go away. So the next one is our adrenal ligament stretch. So we're going to check the shoulder muscles, shoulder ligaments, stretch the shoulder ligaments straight as you can, pull over to here. Okay, and that now stays strong. The next one is that brain on fire hypothalamus challenge, so just touch right here. Then we're going to check an adrenal related muscle. Squeeze your right leg to the left. Okay, that's good. Relax your hand down. Now, remember when we did the nociception, system redundancy, a second way to do the same thing. Squeeze your right leg to the left. And now remember, we also added in something where when we did this inducing pain, and it made every muscle go weak. Push up here, did it change that one? And the answer is yeah, it changed that one too. Okay, pull that way. So that's pretty cool. So that's telling us, okay, this is going to change central nervous system function as well as the ligament function. The next one is the intermedial lateral cell column. When you look at the tip of the nose, that one was negative to begin with, so we don't have to retest that one. And the last one is shining the light in the eye, that pontine medulloreticular formation. I'm just pulling up my light again. And it was only positive on the adrenal muscle, so just relax your hands by your side, look straight ahead. And now squeeze your right leg to the left. Okay, that's restored it to normal. We're going to just do the other one on the heart muscle to make sure we didn't mess anything up. And now push your palm into my palm. Okay, and that one remains the same. So here's what we figured out. We had 4 positive short-term recovery indicators were positive. 4 of 5 long-term indicators were positive. When we put the eye stressed out in its mouth and repeat the procedures back to back to back, it corrects all the procedures. So what we'd have them do is we'd have them start taking the eye stressed out at least 3 times a day. He might have to do that for 6 to 8 months because of the long-term indicators. If just the short-term indicators were positive, no long-term indicators were positive, he might only have to do it for 4 to 6 weeks. So couple those along with the do-it-yourself tests of taking the 3 blood pressures, looking at the moving pictures, looking at the tip of your tongue, you can have a pretty good protocol to determine how you are recovering from your workouts. Something else I would have him do is, okay, I want you to take 1 to 2 tabs after workouts because you get a cortisol surge when you're working out and you want to bring that back down so you can recover. If you're having any sleep issues, then one of the things you should do is take a couple of eye stressed out about 15 to 30 minutes before bedtime. Just wash it down with some water, and then that's going to help you, number 1, fall asleep, and number 2, stay asleep.